Hello. As you've already heard through our district update and our enrollment management update, the college has been doing a lot of activities to try to support students. We're particularly concerned with this idea of always putting students first. One important piece of this has been the efforts that have been done through enrollment management. As administrators, we have a tendency to sort of think of enrollment management as recruiting students, as just getting them in the door. However, in reality, it's also about getting our students to want to stay at Navarro College, to ensure that we're offering them the supports they need to be successful. Now, as instructors, I know that you're very aware of the importance of student success. As a college, we're becoming increasingly cognizant of the importance of this. Based on this, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we view and think about our students, starting with a recent report called Even One Semester. And this is really focused on attendance patterns of students and how we think about students and the supports we offer them. So we have a tendency to think of enrollment status as something that's binary and fixed. We think of our students as either part-time or full-time students. However, in reality, many of our students actually fall into a third enrollment status called fluid attendance. So this is where students transition between part and full-time status. So it may be that they go back and forth between the two. It may be that they start as one and then stay as the other. But the idea is very few students are really only full-time or only part-time. In fact, in a recent study done by the center, they found that when looking at over 60,000 students, that 80% of the students who were third-term students reported being part-time for at least some of their college experience. So in other words, they weren't just full-time, they weren't just part-time, but they experienced a switch between the two. Now, we have long known the importance and benefits of full-time status for a student. We know that they're more likely to complete, we know that they're more likely to have higher rates of engagement, and those sorts of things. However, what the center has discovered is that no longer is that just true for our full-time students. While those students still experience the greatest level of success, their findings suggest that even one semester of full-time attendance creates what they call the FullTime Edge. And this is reflected in higher rates of engagement, completion of gateway courses, persistence, and credential attainment for fluid students. These levels are not always as high as our full-time students, but they are closer to full-time students than to that of part-time students. It's very important for us to recognize the benefits that come with fluid attendance because our number one goal as a college should be to achieve our mission, which is to ensure that our students reach whatever goals they have. Students cannot take advantage of better jobs, higher incomes, and other benefits without attaining their college degree. So we want to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to make that feasible for them. So what you see are fluid attendance students, in other words, those students who attend full-time for at least one semester, experience higher levels of engagement than our part-time students, and it's very close to that of our full-time. So for example, our active and collaborative learning benchmark for CCSSE shows that 53% of our full-time students tend to be engaged, whereas only 45% of our part-time students. However, notice the fluid attendance bar in the middle here, and these students are very close at 51%. So as you can see, as you look down the benchmarks, we see a pattern of the fluid attendance students are very close to that of the full-time students when they talk about engagement. And when we're talking about student engagement, we're really talking about those things that students do to either connect with their schoolwork, to connect with their instructors, to connect with other students. Are they engaging with their teachers and asking questions to really show that they're connecting? In addition to traditional things like, are they coming prepared to class? The center also found students' completion was higher for the fluid attendance students than for the part-time students. So here are just a couple of examples of that. So for example, when they looked at the percentage of students passing their Gateway English with a C or better, you can see that full-time was right around 87%, whereas part-time was about 10% below that at 77%. But what's really interesting is that fluid attendance students were actually at 89%. So not only are they right there with the full-time students, but they're actually a little bit higher. Okay, and again, we're seeing they have very similar performance for passing that first Gateway math course. So as you know, for many of our students, their struggle to getting their degree really comes with passing those initial Gateway courses, which is why as a college we chose to focus our QEP on those Gateway math courses and trying to make sure that we had supports, because we found those are the courses that our students are failing and dropping out of the most, and we want to make sure that that doesn't stop them from achieving their academic goals. And of course, when we talk about student success and completion, we're thinking about the student's overall completion. And as you can see, while their graduation with their associate or degree or certificate isn't as high as full-time students, it's definitely about 11% higher than part-time. So that's definitely giving them an advantage there. So basically, what we should be taking away from this is, what can we be doing as an institution to create this full-time edge? So some of the factors that they say contribute to creating this full-time edge are mandatory orientation, or just more likely to engage in orientation as full-time students. They spend more time on campus. They're engaged with more activities and support services. They have more opportunities to build relationships with students and to collaborate. They're more likely to get involved in group work and things like that. And they get more exposure to faculty. While we all know that the success of a student rests on how they perform, it's very important that they have opportunities to connect with faculty, to ask questions, to clarify, and to just build relationships so that they feel more connected to their courses and to the college as a whole. So basically then, what the center says we should start thinking about is ways that we can create the full-time edge for our part-time students. While it would be ideal that every student attend at least one semester full-time, we all know that the reality is most of students can't do that. That students have many competing responsibilities, especially community college students, that pull them away from being students. So this is where we need to start thinking about preparing students to act in their own best interest, ensuring that they're getting adequate advising, career services, that they know about the resources available, and they know how to access those resources. So this sort of seems like a no-brainer to us. However, the findings showed that many of the students really don't know how to connect with these resources, and they really aren't taking advantage of them. So for example, students have unrealistic expectations about the time needed to earn a degree. This was most clearly evidenced by 47% of them expected to earn an AS in 1 to 2 years, even though they were only attending part-time. They also found that the earlier the students were in their college experience, the less realistic they were. However, even students who were as far as 3 terms in still expected to complete on time, despite the fact that they were taking fewer credits. So moving forward, we really need to be thinking about what kinds of things can we do to ensure that our students have realistic expectations, that they're taking advantage of the resources when they're needing, and that they are engaged as students. So we recently administered the CCSSE this last spring. As you can see, our students, just like every other CCSSE student, our full-time students tend to be more engaged than our part-time students. So you can see, for example, in active and collaborative learning, only 46% of them indicated high levels of engagement, whereas 57% of our full-time indicated that. And you see that across the board. So this tells us that yes, as expected, our full-time students are more engaged. And so that makes it very important for us to think about what are we doing differently for those full-time students, and how could we potentially recreate that for our part-time students. What we have here is the benchmarks. I have a comparison for you for Navarro College in 2014, which is the last time we administered the CCSSE, our most recent administration for 2017, and then the 2017 national cohort comparison. So we're seeing higher levels of engagement from our students, and this shows us that as faculty, you're connecting with our students and you want to make sure to continue those efforts. how can we make our student experience similar regardless of enrollment status? So what kinds of things can we do to support our students? So for example, what opportunities do your students have to engage with you inside and outside of the classroom? What can you do to encourage or even require your students to take advantage of support services? So make sure they're utilizing tutoring, academic advising, career advising, etc. One thing that we learned from the report is that for many students, it's important not only that they know those supports exist, but they understand how to access them. As instructors, you do play a key role in helping those students connect and helping to ensure that they're getting the things that they need so that they can be successful. Thank you very much.